Lucian, that star moon necklace is my mother's heirloom. I know. You auctioned it off and gave it to Celeste. Nina, she just came back, her health is poor, she needs to be comforted. I looked at his calm and indifferent face and smiled. Lucian, let's get a divorce. He frowned, as if he had heard some joke. Nina, stop messing around. Under the spotlights of the charity gala, Lucian personally put on that diamond necklace worth 30 million, star moon, for Celeste. The brilliant diamonds reflected Celeste's pale yet satisfied face. She nestled in Lucian's arms and softly said, Lucian, thank you. I thought I'd never see it again. Lucian's gaze was a tenderness I had never seen. He stroked her hair, his voice low and indulgent. Silly girl, when have I ever forgotten something I promised you? The entire venue erupted in thunderous applause, all praising the Lu Corporation president's lavish spending for his beauty. I stood in the shadows of the corner, like a ridiculous outsider. Just a few hours ago, Lucian was holding my hand, telling me he had a surprise for me tonight. It turned out the surprise was for Celeste. And I was just a foil. The surrounding whispers pierced my ears like needles. Isn't that Lucian's wife, Nina? Why is she standing there alone? You don't know? Lucian's first love, Celeste, is back. Look, the rightful owner has returned. TSK, Nina is really pitiful. She accompanied Lucian for 3 years, thinking she could warm his heart, but as soon as his first love came back, she's nothing. My fingers tightly gripped the wine glass, nails digging into the flesh, yet I felt no pain. My heart felt like it was being squeezed by an invisible hand, hurting so much I couldn't breathe. 3 years ago, Lucian's company was in crisis. It was my father who exhausted his family fortune to help him through it. The condition was that he marry me. On our wedding night, he was drunk out of his mind, calling out Celeste. That's when I learned he had someone in his heart, a woman named Celeste who had left him to study abroad. I naively thought that if I was good to him, one day he would see me. For 3 years, I cooked and managed the household for him, handled clients he didn't want to see, and even gave up my beloved career in Chinese painting for him. I turned myself into his shadow, the most sensible and considerate wife. But I forgot that a shadow is ultimately just a shadow, forever unable to replace the moonlight. The banquet ended, and the guests dispersed. Lucian supported the frail Celeste as he approached, a hint of impatience on his face. Why are you still here? Can't you go back by yourself? His tone was as if I were an insensible subordinate. I looked at him, my gaze falling on the star moon necklace around Celeste's neck. That necklace was designed by my mother, her only heirloom left to me. 3 months ago, it was stolen and sold by a distant relative, and after several turns, it ended up at tonight's auction. I begged Lucian for a long time to bid it back for me. He agreed. Lucian, that star moon necklace is my mother's heirloom. I heard my own voice trembling. Lucian's expression changed slightly but quickly returned to calm. I know. You know? I almost laughed out loud. You knew, and then you bid it and gave it to Celeste? Celeste immediately showed a aggrieved expression, her eyes reddening. I'm sorry, Miss Nina, I didn't know. Lucian, why not return it to Miss Nina? I can't take what belongs to someone else. As she spoke, she moved to remove the necklace. Lucian immediately held her hand, frowning tightly at me. Nina, stop making a fuss, okay? Celeste just came back, her health is poor, she needs comforting. It's just a necklace, later I'll buy you 10 more expensive ones. I don't want 10, I just want that one. I finally couldn't control myself and roared, tears bursting forth. That wasn't an ordinary necklace, it was my only memento of my mother. Lucian's patience had clearly run out. He thought I was being unreasonable, embarrassing him in front of Celeste. Nina, can you be sensible? Celeste left back then to not burden me, she suffered much more than you. Everything you have now is given by me, what more could you be dissatisfied with? Everything I have is given by him? I looked at his cold face and suddenly laughed, laughing until tears flowed. So, my 3 years of dedication, my father's bankruptcy, were worthless in his eyes. I was just a woman surviving on his charity. My heart died completely in that moment. I wiped away my tears and, with an unprecedented calm tone, looked at him. Lucian, let's get a divorce. He was stunned, then frowned, as if hearing the biggest joke. Nina, stop messing around. I'm not messing around. I calmly repeated, Lucian, I said, let's get a divorce. Lucian's face completely darkened, he let go of Celeste's hand, took a step forward, an overwhelming pressure coming at me. Nina, do you know what you're saying? His voice was full of warning, take back what you just said, and I can pretend nothing happened. Celeste weakly spoke from the side, Lucian, don't be angry, it's all my fault. Miss Nina, don't argue with Lucian, I'll return the necklace to you tomorrow. No need. I interrupted her, my gaze locked on Lucian's face, what doesn't belong to me, I don't want. What belongs to me, no one can take away. After saying that, I didn't glance at them again and turned resolutely toward the parking lot. The high heels clicked crisply and solitarily on the polished floor. Returning to that villa called home, the air still lingered with Lucian's usual cedar cologne scent, but I only felt suffocated. Without any nostalgia, I went straight to the second-floor dressing room. Half was Lucian's, half mine. I opened my half, filled with various designer clothes, bags, glittering jewels. These were all given by Lucian, props to display the Mrs. status. I didn't touch a single one. I pulled open the bottom drawer, where an old suitcase lay. Opening it, inside were a few old clothes I brought when I married, my painting tools, and a thick album. These were truly mine. I took them out, then retrieved 2 documents from the safe. One was the equity transfer agreement my father signed with Lucian back then, the other was the divorce agreement I had prepared long ago. I placed the divorce agreement on the most conspicuous coffee table in the living room, then dragged my small suitcase and left this golden cage that had imprisoned me for 3 years without looking back. On the late-night streets, the cold wind was biting. I hailed a taxi and gave an address, South City, Wutong Lane. That was where I grew up, my true home. The car started, the neon lights outside the window receding rapidly, just like my absurd 3-year marriage. I thought I had shed all my tears, but as the car left the affluent area, tears still fell uncontrollably. Goodbye, Lucian. Goodbye, my humble, ridiculous love. When Lucian returned home, it was already 2 in the morning. He settled Celeste, accompanied her at the hospital for a while, and then dragged his tired body back. The villa was pitch black, no light left on for him as usual. He frowned, feeling somewhat displeased. Nina's temper was getting worse. He fumbled in the dark to turn on the light, the living room was empty, only a document on the coffee table stood out. He walked over, picked it up, and his pupils contracted sharply, divorce agreement. Nina! He roared and rushed upstairs. Pushing open the bedroom door, empty. Pushing open the dressing room door, his side was neatly arranged, but Nina's half was completely empty. No, not entirely empty. The designer clothes, bags, and jewelry he bought for her were still there. She only took her own things. For the first time, an indescribable panic surged in Lucian's heart. He immediately took out his phone and dialed Nina's number. Sorry, the user you dialed is powered off. The cold mechanical voice came, like a bucket of cold water poured over his head. Was she serious? Just for a necklace? Lucian's anger ignited again, he thought Nina was simply unreasonable. He slammed the divorce agreement to the ground, gnashing his teeth. Nina, you wait. Within 3 days, you'll definitely come back crying and begging me. He firmly believed that without him, Nina had nothing and couldn't survive. He waited for her to soften, waited for her to call him proactively like after countless arguments before, humbly apologizing. However, 1 day passed. 2 days passed. 3 days passed. The phone was as quiet as a brick. Nina seemed to have completely evaporated from the world. On the 4th day, Lucian finally couldn't sit still. The company was in chaos. Only then did he realize that Nina was not just his wife but his most capable free assistant. His daily schedule, meeting reminders, file organization, even his picky stomach, were all taken care of meticulously by Nina. With her gone, his entire work and life system collapsed. Secretary Lily, where are the materials for the afternoon meeting with Kerr? Lucian irritably tapped the table. The new secretary Lily timidly handed over a document. Lucian, here. Lucian flipped it open and frowned deeply. I want the final version of the West City project plan, not the initial concept. Where did Nina put these things? Secretary Lily was almost in tears. Lucian, I don't know, Miss Nina didn't hand over anything when she left. Useless. Lucian slammed the document on the table. For the first time, he clearly realized that Nina was not just a sensible wife to him. Suppressing his irritation, he called his assistant and childhood friend Harris. Find out where Nina is now. Harris whistled on the other end. Yo, President Lucian finally remembers your legitimate wife? I thought with your first love back, you'd forgotten the wife who shared your hardships. Cut the crap, go check quickly. Fine, I'll go now. But let me remind you, Lucian, this time you might have really messed up. Nina seems soft on the outside, but inside she's tougher than anyone. Lucian impatiently hung up. He didn't believe Nina could be that tough. A pampered young lady like her, where could she go without him? Probably just back to her family to cry. As long as he went to the Zhou family to pick her up, give her a way out, the matter would be over. In the afternoon, Harris called back, his tone somewhat strange. Lucian, found her. But, you better come see for yourself. Lucian's heart sank, an ominous premonition surging. Following the address Harris gave, he drove to the old district in South City. This place was worlds apart from his Cloud Peak Villa area. Narrow streets, old houses, full of everyday life vibes. His luxury car parked at the alley entrance looked out of place. Frowning, he walked into the alley called Wutong Lane. Deep in the alley, there was a small studio with a wooden sign at the door engraved with, Nina Studio. Through the glass window, he saw a familiar yet unfamiliar figure. Nina was wearing a simple cotton linen dress, her long hair loosely tied up, sitting in front of an easel, focused on mixing paints. The afternoon sunlight poured through the window onto her, gilding her with a soft halo. Her face no longer held the past humility and flattery, replaced by a serene and powerful vitality Lucian had never seen. In the studio, several children surrounded her, chattering questions. She smiled patiently, explaining softly to them. In that moment, Lucian seemed to see a completely unfamiliar Nina. One that didn't belong to him and didn't need him at all. His heart felt like it was stabbed hard by something. Just then, a young man in a white shirt came in carrying 2 cups of coffee, naturally handing one to Nina, then affectionately ruffling her hair. Nina, take a break, you've been painting all morning. Nina looked up and gave him a brilliant smile. Almost done, Zay, wait for me a bit. That smile was dazzlingly bright. Lucian never knew Nina could smile so beautifully. Because when facing him, she was always cautious, with a hint of flattery. Who was this man called Zay? What right did he have to ruffle her hair? What right did she have to smile so brightly at him? A torrent of rage and jealousy instantly overwhelmed Lucian's reason. Without thinking, he pushed the door open and burst in. Nina. All eyes in the studio instantly focused on the door. The children were frightened silent by his gloomy face. The moment Nina saw him, her smile froze, then turned into cold detachment. She stood up, looking at him calmly, as if at an irrelevant stranger. What are you doing here? Her tone was colder than winter wind. Lucian's heart felt frozen by this chill. He strode to her, grabbing her wrist with force, almost crushing her bones. Come back with me. He gritted his teeth, squeezing out the words. The sharp pain in her wrist made Nina frown, but she didn't struggle, just looked at him coldly. Lucian, see clearly, this is my studio, not your home. Please let go. Your studio? Lucian laughed as if hearing the biggest joke, scanning around with eyes full of disdain. This rundown place? Nina, don't be shameless, come back with me, and I can pretend nothing happened. He thought his condescending visit was a great favor. He thought she would, as before, take the step he offered and obediently go home with him. However, he was wrong. Lucian is joking. Nina's lips curved in a mocking arc. You and I have no relationship anymore. I've signed the divorce agreement, it's on your coffee table at home. Read it, sign it, and we can proceed. Divorce? Lucian's anger fully ignited. Nina, I tell you, I don't agree to this divorce. What right did he have to disagree? He was reluctant to marry back then. Now for divorce, what right did he have to disagree? Mr. Lucian, please let go of Nina. The man in the white shirt, Zay, couldn't stand it anymore. He stepped forward, trying to pull Lucian's hand away. Who are you? Get lost. Lucian didn't even look at him, pushing him away. Zay staggered, hitting the nearby easel. A just-completed painting fell to the ground, smeared with paint. Zay! Nina exclaimed, shaking off Lucian's hand and rushing to help Zay up. Are you okay? Zay shook his head, looking at the ruined painting with a flash of heartache. I'm fine, but pity this painting, you worked on it for days. That was Nina's work for an important exhibition. Seeing her hard work destroyed, seeing the scrape on Zay's hand, the anger Nina had suppressed for 3 years finally erupted completely. She turned sharply, raising her hand to give Lucian a resounding slap. Slap. The crisp sound instantly silenced the entire studio. Lucian's head turned from the slap, his face burning hot. In his whole life, this was the first time someone slapped him. He looked at Nina in disbelief, his eyes filled with shock and anger almost devouring her. You dare hit me? Why wouldn't I dare? Nina's eyes burned with fierce fire. She pointed at the door, saying word by word, Lucian, take your arrogance and conceit, and get out of my world. Her voice wasn't loud, but it carried a resolute force, smashing hard into Lucian's heart. Looking at this completely changed Nina, he suddenly felt she was utterly unfamiliar. She was no longer the wife who obeyed him unconditionally and endured everything. She was a cat that had retracted its claws but, when cornered, would unhesitatingly bare its sharp blades. Good, very good. Lucian laughed in extreme anger, touching his burning cheek, his gaze terrifyingly sinister. Nina, you'll regret this. Without me, let's see how long you and your rundown studio can last. With that, he turned and slammed the door out. The huge door slam shook the windows buzzing. In the studio, the children were scared almost to tears. Nina took a deep breath, squatted down, and gently comforted them. Don't be afraid, the uncle has left. Her hands trembled slightly, but her gaze was exceptionally firm. Regret? Her biggest regret was falling in love with Lucian for those 3 years. From now on, her life would no longer be lived for anyone else. Lucian's revenge came fast and ruthless. The next day, the studio's landlord came, saying he wouldn't rent anymore and we had to move out immediately. I looked at the landlord's embarrassed and guilty face, understanding everything. Uncle Lee, did Lucian approach you? The landlord sighed and nodded. Nina, I'm sorry. That Lucian isn't someone us common folks can afford to offend. He said if I still rent to you, my whole family won't be able to stay in South City. I understand. I didn't make it hard for him, give me 3 days, I'll definitely move out. After seeing off the landlord, Zay looked at me worriedly. Nina, what now? We'll handle whatever comes. I smiled pretending to be relaxed. There's always a way, worst case, we'll paint on the streets. Zay looked at me, his eyes full of heartache. It's all my fault, if not for me. It's not your fault. I interrupted him, this is between him and me. Zay, thank you for being with me all this time. Zay was my senior in university, also a somewhat famous young painter. After my divorce, when I was desperate, he took me in and helped open this studio. To me, he was teacher, friend, and family. In the next 3 days, we searched for a new place while packing the studio. Lucian's influence was greater than I imagined. The entire South City, no shop dared rent to me. Just when I was about to despair, an unexpected person found me. Miss Nina, our boss wants to see you. The man in suit was respectful, handing me a card. The card had only a surname and a phone number, Gu. I looked at him puzzled. I didn't know anyone surnamed Gu. Who is your boss? You'll know when you go. I hesitated but decided to go see. Anyway, I was at the end of my rope, what could be worse? The car took me to South City's top private club Yunshui Jian. Led by the waiter, I entered an elegant private room. In the room, an elder in tang suit, vigorous and alert, sat at the tea table calmly brewing tea. Seeing me enter, he looked up, revealing a face full of wrinkles but still showing youthful charm. You are Nina? His voice was gentle yet strong. Who are you? I'm called Arden. Arden. The name was thunderous. The pillar of Xia country's painting world, the most renowned contemporary landscape painting master. I never dreamed I'd see him in person one day. Excited and incoherent, Mr. Arden, what do you want with me? Arden smiled, pointing to the opposite seat, sit and talk. He poured me a cup of tea, the aroma overflowing. I've seen your paintings. He got straight to the point. My heart jumped to my throat. How do you feel? Ample craftsmanship, insufficient spirit. Arden was incisive. My heart sank, face burning. The master's critique was indeed sharp. However, he changed tone, your basics are solid, brushwork has your own ideas. But your paintings lack the most important thing. What is it? I asked eagerly. It's soul. Arden looked at me deeply, your paintings have no soul. They're beautiful, but dead. Like an exquisite doll without life. These words, like lightning, split my long confusion. In the 3 years married to Lucian, to cater to his tastes, I gave up my best freehand landscape, switching to meticulous flowerbird he deemed elegant. My paintings had long lost their original form, becoming like him, cold and emotionless. Child, I know you've had troubles lately. Arden spoke slowly, that Lu family kid is too ruthless. I was stunned, how do you know? Because I'm your grandfather's close friend. Arden sighed, your mother was my most prized disciple. Before she passed, she entrusted you to me. Unfortunately, I was traveling abroad then, by the time I returned, you were married. I was completely stunned. Grandfather? Mother? These were distant and unfamiliar words to me. I grew up with my father, he never mentioned mother's relatives. Arden took out a yellowed old photo from his pocket. In it, a gentle beautiful woman held a swaddled baby, smiling happily. The woman resembled me by 70%. This is your mother, Serena. And I am your nominal grandfather. My tears burst forth instantly. So, I wasn't alone. So, in this world, I still had family. Arden told me my mother Serena came from a Jiangnan calligraphy and painting family, a rare genius painter in a century. And my grandfather was once a renowned collector. Later, the family declined, mother married far to my then penniless father for love. Unfortunately, beauty has a short fate. Your father didn't let you touch these, fearing you'd follow your mother's path. Arden sighed, he hoped you'd live plainly and stably. Unfortunately, you inherited your mother's talent and hardships. I wiped my tears, feelings mixed. Grievance, bitterness, but more a sense of rooted stability. Child, come back to the Gu family with me. Arden extended his hand, from today, you are my dear granddaughter. I'd like to see who dares touch a hair on you. I looked at his aged yet powerful hand and nodded heavily. 3 days later, the most authoritative art media under Gu Group released news shocking South City's high society, Chinese painting master Arden reunites with long-lost granddaughter, surprisingly Lu Group president's ex-wife Nina. The article detailed my background and attached a photo of Grandpa Arden and me affectionately. It stirred huge waves. No one expected that the abandoned rich wife, discarded by Lucian and trampled by Celeste, would transform into Master Arden's granddaughter. This status was infinitely more precious than Mrs. Lucian. When Lucian saw the news, he was having lunch with Celeste. His knife and fork clattered onto the plate. Nina, is Arden's granddaughter? How is that possible? He immediately called Harris, voice trembling, check now. Find out what's going on. Celeste's face turned ashen. She always thought Nina was just a merchant's daughter with some money, easy to manipulate. But now, Nina's backer was Arden, whom even the Liu family respected. She panicked, tightly grabbing Lucian's hand. Lucian, is there a misunderstanding? How could Miss Nina? Lucian irritably shook off her hand. How would I know? His mind was in chaos. He remembered Nina telling him more than once she liked painting landscapes. But he scoffed, saying it was outdated, telling her to learn flower arrangement and tea ceremony to match Mrs. Liu's status. He recalled the many freehand paintings in Nina's studio he couldn't understand, mocking them as scribbles. So, they weren't scribbles, they were art he could never reach. He broke her wings himself and mocked her for not flying. Harris called back soon, tone extremely complex. Lucian, it's true. Not only true, but more explosive than the news. Nina's mother Serena was Arden's only direct disciple. And Nina's grandfather was Jiangnan's top collector Shen Banqing. The Zhou family isn't nouveau riche but a hidden scholarly family. Back then, Uncle Daniel sold ancestral property to gather that money for you. He couldn't hear the rest. His mind buzzed. So, his proud charity was actually the Zhou family's all-out help. So, the woman he looked down on had background and talent he couldn't match. He always thought himself a lofty king, Nina dust under his feet. Only today did he realize he was the ridiculous frog in the well. A huge panic and regret flooded him like tides. He stood abruptly, grabbing car keys and rushing out. Lucian, where are you going? Celeste chased anxiously. To find her. He had to find her back. Tell her he was wrong. Lock her back by his side. By any means. Lucian drove madly to the Gu family old house. The Gu family was a true century-old clan, the house by East Lake in South City's best scenery, ancient and elegant, heavily guarded. His car was stopped outside the gate. I want to see Nina. He roared at the security. The guard expressionless, no appointment, no entry. Do you know who I am? I'm Lucian of Liu Group. No matter who, without Arden's order, no one enters. Lucian punched the steering wheel in anger. For the first time, he tasted being shut out. Before, others begged to see him. Now, he lacked even the qualification to see Nina. He waited at Gu's door for a day and night, without eating or drinking. He thought this self-torture would soften Nina. However, the Gu gate never opened for him. The next day, he received a court summons, Nina suing for divorce, demanding return of all Zhou family investment, plus 3 years interest and mental damages. Total, 500 million. Lucian looked at the astronomical figure on the summons, almost laughing in anger. She dared sue him? Demand compensation? On what grounds? Lucian's lawyer told him he had almost no chance in this lawsuit. Because the contract Daniel signed with Lucian wasn't a gift but a conditional equity investment. The condition was Lucian must maintain the marriage with Nina. Now, Lucian's infidelity, openly with Celeste, caused the marriage breakdown. Nina had full right to withdraw investment and demand compensation. 500 million was no small sum for current Liu Group. Once funds withdrawn, the just stabilized company might crisis again. Lucian finally felt fear. Only then did he realize Nina wasn't joking. She wanted to completely disappear from his world and take away his survival foundation. He couldn't lose the company, nor her. He tried every way to contact Nina. Phone off. Messages unanswered. He ambushed Zay. Zay coldly told him, Mr. Lucian, Nina doesn't want to see you, please don't disturb her life anymore. He even found Grandpa Arden. The old man was trimming flowers in the yard, not glancing at him, just faintly saying, young man, bear your own sins. My Gu family people aren't for you to bully. Lucian was completely out of ideas. Like a headless fly, he frantically searched for Nina in South City. Meanwhile, Nina was in Gu family's studio, preparing for the upcoming Qingyun Cup National Young Painters Contest. That was the most prestigious contest in domestic painting circles, where her mother became famous overnight. She wanted to reclaim everything hers, including her mother's glory. "Nina, it's spreading like wildfire outside," saying Lucian kneeled at Gu's door for a day to see you. Zay said while grinding ink for her. Nina's brush tip paused but quickly resumed. Without lifting her head, she faintly said, "Let him be." Her heart no longer stirred for that man. Zay looked at her focused profile, a gentle smile flashing in his eyes. He knew Nina had completely moved on. She was no longer a vine depending on a man but a tree holding up its own sky. On contest day, South City Art Museum was packed. Nina's work Nirvana hung in the exhibition hall center. On the painting, a phoenix spread wings in flames, eyes firm, feathers gorgeous, full of majestic vitality. Everyone was shocked by this painting. "This painting has soul." A senior judge stood excitedly. "It paints despair and hope. This is true art." Without suspense, Nina won the Qingyun Cup Gold Award. Standing on the podium under spotlights, she was beautifully radiant. Below, Lucian squeezed in the crowd, staring dazedly at her. His eyes red, heart gripped hard, hurting unbearably. He finally understood what a brilliant treasure he lost. He wanted to rush up, hug her, beg forgiveness. But as he moved, two black-clad bodyguards stopped him. He could only watch as Zay went on stage, presented Nina a bunch of fiery red roses, then, under all eyes, gave her a gentle hug. After the award ceremony, a grand celebration banquet was held at South City's most luxurious hotel. Nina, the night's brightest star, was surrounded. Business elites, art masters, toasted her congratulations. Wearing a cheapao custom made by Arden, she was graceful, radiant, handling with ease. No longer the timid little wife behind Lucian. Lucian didn't know how he sneaked in. Standing in the corner like a humble peeper, greedily watching her every expression. His heart ached like cut by knives. So, without him, she could live so well, so brilliantly. While he, without her, was like a soulless walking corpse. Company matters were a mess. Celeste cried daily in his ear, complaining he neglected her. He felt utterly annoyed. His mind was full of Nina. Her in apron busying in the kitchen for him, leaving a light on late at night for him, cautiously asking in his arms, "Are you happy today?" Those scenes he once disdained now became sharpest knives, torturing his heart cut by cut. He finally couldn't hold back, holding a wine glass, parting the crowd, walking to Nina. "Nina." His voice was hoarsely unnatural. The surroundings instantly quieted, all eyes on them. Nina's smile faded, she looked at him, eyes calm without ripples. "Lucian, something?" One Lucian like a sharp sword piercing his heart. He smiled bitterly. "Nina, can we talk?" "I think there's nothing to talk between us." Nina's tone distant and polite. "If Lucian wants to talk divorce, my lawyer will contact you." "I don't agree to divorce." Lucian's emotions lost control. He grabbed her hand. "Nina, I know I was wrong. I really know. Give me another chance, okay? Let's start over." Gasps rose around. The dignified Lu president, in public, so humbly salvaging a woman he abandoned. This was the year's most explosive news. Nina tried hard to pull back her hand, but Lucian gripped too tight. "Lucian, let go. You're hurting me." "I won't." Lucian's eyes red, like mad, "Unless you promise no divorce." "Mr. Lucian, please respect yourself." Zay stepped forward, forcefully prying Lucian's hand, protecting Nina behind. "You again." Lucian saw Zay, jealousy and anger almost spewing fire. "Nina, is it because of him you want divorce? Where am I inferior to him?" Nina found the Lucian before her both pitiful and ridiculous. Even now, he still didn't understand their problems were never due to a third party. "Lucian, you're wrong." Nina stepped out from behind Zay, calmly looking at him. "I left you not because of anyone, just because I don't love you anymore." "I don't love you anymore." These 5 words, like 5 poison daggers, stabbed hard into Lucian's heart. He staggered back, face pale as paper. "No, impossible." He murmured, "You loved me for so many years, how could you say no love and stop?" "Yes, I loved you for so many years." Nina's lips curved in self-mockery. "I gave you my youth, my dignity, my everything, but what did you give me? Endless indifference, repeated humiliations, using my mother's heirloom to please another woman." Her voice grew louder, carrying 3 years' suppressed grievance and anger. "Lucian, you killed all my love for you yourself. Now, what right do you have to ask me back?" Lucian was speechless. Looking at her resolute eyes, he finally realized he had truly, forever lost her. The banquet ended unhappily. Lucian walked out soullessly, like a walking corpse. He drove aimlessly on streets, finally inexplicably back to their former home. The villa was pitch black, coldly lifeless. He turned on the light, looking at the empty house, huge loneliness swallowed him. He went to the dressing room, opened Nina's half. Those designer clothes, bags lay quietly, as if mocking his stupidity. He touched each one, as if her scent lingered. He opened the bottom drawer, where her old suitcase once was, now empty. He squatted, collapsing, hugging his head, letting out beast-like sobs. He regretted. He truly regretted. If time could rewind, he wouldn't call the wrong name on wedding night. If time could rewind, he'd hug her when she served hot soup. If time could rewind, he'd bid everything for that star moon at the auction for her. But no ifs. Next day, Lu Group stock hit limit down at open. News of Lucian abandoning wife for first love boiled, plus Nina's divorce suit withdrawing huge funds, heavily damaging Lu's reputation and foundation. Board held emergency meeting, shareholders demanded explanation from Lucian. Lucian entered with bloodshot eyes, looking utterly haggard. "Lucian, company is panicked, you must stabilize." "Yes, Gu family has threatened full attack on our industries." "Lucian, without Zhou family back then, where'd you be today? Treating Nina like this is ungrateful." Accusations, curses came from all sides. Lucian said nothing, just sat silently. Then, the door pushed open, Celeste ran in crying. "Lucian." She threw herself at him, tearful. "People outside curse me as mistress, saying I destroyed your family. I didn't mean to, I really didn't know it'd be like this." She wanted to continue her weak innocent role. But Lucian had no patience for her act. He looked up, with unprecedented cold eyes. "Was it you who told reporters I begged Nina to reconcile at the banquet?" Celeste's cries halted, eyes flickering. I didn't." "Was it you who leaked Nina suing me, wanting public opinion to force me?" Celeste's face paled more. "Was it you exaggerating your illness, lying you'd die soon, making me guilty?" Lucian's questions pressed closer, his voice's chill dropping the room to freezing. He wasn't stupid. Just blinded by lard before, by so-called first love filter. Calmed, linking everything, Celeste's tricks were exposed. Celeste panicked under his gaze, retreating. "Lucian, listen, it's not what you think. Get out." Lucian said one word. "What?" "I said get out." Lucian pointed at the door, eyes full of disgust and resolve. "Take your things, disappear completely from my world." For this woman, he lost the most important person in his life. He was the world's #1 fool. Celeste looked in disbelief, she didn't expect her painstaking efforts to collapse so fast. Unwilling, she wanted to say something but was scared silent by Lucian's murderous gaze, finally running out crying. The room was dead silent. Lucian slowly stood, deeply bowing to all shareholders. "Everyone, sorry. My personal failings caused huge company losses. From today, I resign as Lu Group president." Ignoring shocks and retentions, he resolutely left. Lucian's resignation news exploded South City again. No one expected he'd end his business legend this way. He sold his mansions, sports cars, gathered 500 million, transferred fully to Nina's account. Then, he disappeared. Some said he went bankrupt, homeless. Others said the blow drove him mad. But all this was irrelevant to Nina. Her Nina studio reopened with Gu family support, expanded, becoming South City's most professional Chinese painting teaching base. Her painting Nirvana was collected by National Art Museum. She was exceptionally hired as guest professor at South City Art University. Her life finally on track, bright. The only headache was Zay's increasingly obvious pursuit. Nina, give me a chance. Zay held a big bunch of sunflowers at the studio door, smiling sincerely. I promise to treat you well, better than anyone. Students in the studio hooted. Nina was helpless, also touched. She knew Zay was a good man, but just out of a failed marriage, she had no energy for new romance. Zay, She was about to refuse when her peripheral vision caught a familiar figure at the street corner. That person wore faded old clothes, messy hair, stubbly beard, squatting across the road, holding a sketchpad, secretly drawing something. It was Lucian. Much thinner, darker, no longer spirited, like a destitute vagrant. Nina's heart still inevitably stung. She didn't know why he was here or what he went through. But she knew it was over between them. She withdrew her gaze, looked at Zay before her, suddenly smiled. Perhaps, people must look forward. She took the sunflowers from Zay, softly said, okay. One word stunned Zay, then ecstatic. At the corner, Lucian's brush clatter dropped to the ground. He had drawn her countless times, smiling, crying, angry. But just now, he saw her smile at another man, accept another man's flowers. In that moment, he knew the person in his drawings would never look back at him. He slowly lowered his head, looking at the gracefully smiling woman on the sketchpad, tears dropping one by one, blurring a patch. He lost, utterly defeated. He lost his moon, misplaced his stars. From then on, his world only endless darkness.